Hello, and welcome to this edition of Snowdesk, the show from the snow in Grand Teton National Park. My name is Ranger Kristen.
And I'm Ranger Katie.
And we are coming to you live from Grand Teton National Park in Moose, Wyoming. And it's pretty chilly out here today, so if you see us shivering, you'll understand why. We are actually sitting at a desk made of snow, sitting on a bench made of snow, surrounded by nearly 4 feet of snow. Throughout the broadcast today, if you are interested in submitting any questions to us, you can do that via our email, which is grte_education@nps.gov. So if you have any questions throughout the broadcast that you, as students, you want to submit those, we'll have a couple minutes at the end of the broadcast to try to go through and answer some of those questions that might come in.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, as Kristen mentioned, we are in Grand Teton National Park, but where and what is that? So we are located in northwestern Wyoming. So I think we'll get a chance to see a map here in just a second. Look for the little red star on that map, and the map will show you where we are, and find your own location wherever you're tuning in from today, and do a comparison. Imagine what the weather is like here. It's currently snowing and about 34 degrees. Do a little comparison about what the weather's like where they are.
I bet it's pretty different in some places across the country.
I bet it is pretty different. And Grand Teton National Park is one of 414 special places around the United States that have been set aside to be protected forever. These special places, like, I'm sure you know, the Statue of Liberty and the Golden Gate Bridge, Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton, of course, where you've reached us today. These places have been set aside because they tell the story of all Americans, and they're important to people around the world. There are lots of amazing things to explore and discover, learn, and experience when you're here in these special places, and they'll always be here for you. In fact, the beautiful landscape that we would normally show you behind us, which is a little cloud covered today, maybe we can even go to a picture of the mountains at some point throughout the broadcast. Maybe you'll see a picture of the mountains, and you'll get a chance to see what that looks like here in our special national park that you've tuned in today.
That's right. So Grand Teton National Park was created to protect these beautiful mountains, and also a large variety of wildlife. We are actually part of the largest intact temperate ecosystem in the world, which basically means that everything that is supposed to be here as far as plants and animals go, for the most part, is still here today. So our entire food web is intact and complete. So that means we have things like grizzly bears, black bears, moose, elk, gray wolves, all sorts of things living here in our ecosystem. So it's a pretty special thing. But if for all of those creatures to live here, they have to figure out how they're going to survive winter in Grand Teton National Park. So let's think about a little bit what winter is like in Grand Teton. What first comes to mind for me is that it's kind of dark. We have long nights, short days. The sun, when it's out, which I can't remember the last time I've seen the sun. When the sun is out, it's low in the sky. It doesn't bring much brightness or warmth for sure.
So winter is a pretty dark time. There's also not very much food. Imagine a lot of the animals here in the national park love food that this time of year is actually beneath all of the snow. In fact, right here in the town of Moose, where you've reached us, we get about 150 inches of snow. And up in the mountains in Grand Teton National Park, we actually get about 400 inches of snow. And if you can imagine maybe the height of your home in terms of like how many stories your home is or how many stories tall your school is, we have done a comparison, and the height of 400 inches is actually the height of a 3-story building. So that's how much snow falls here in the mountains over the course of a winter. That's a lot of snow.
That is a lot of snow. And it's definitely also very cold. The record low temperature in Grand Teton National Park, the coldest it's ever been, was negative 63 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty extreme. We haven't seen temperatures quite like that recently, but even just within the last few weeks, we have seen a lot of nights where the temperature dipped
Mhm.
to -30 or -35 below zero, and the temperature those days didn't get above zero. So that's some pretty extreme cold, and that is just only representative of winters in Grand Teton. Of course, we have summer too, and during those summers, we can get into the 70s, even the 80s. So that's something. And here's kind of an idea of what summer might look like in Grand Teton. Now you get to see those beautiful mountains that are covered in snow and clouds today. So it does change a bit, and so we do get both seasons here in Grand Teton.
But it does feel a little far away.
It does.
Because winter can be a really long time here. Winter can last 6, even 8 months out of the year. Sometimes that's more than half of our year dedicated to winter. In fact, our first snowfall came in September of this last year, and we think it'll persist here. What do you think, May or June?
I think snowdesk is going to be around for a while.
Yeah, winter is a very long time.
That's right. So I kind of wonder across the country there, those people tuning in, if anyone's hoping to move here and spend a winter in Grand Teton National Park after that wonderful glowing description of what it's like.
Probably some really excited folks.
Maybe.
Let's hope. Well, we both moved here to Grand Teton National Park from other places. Kristen, where did you move from?
I moved here from Cincinnati, Ohio. Not quite as, we get some winter, but not as snowy as this.
Right. And I moved from Northern California, and we get snow there, but not as cold as this.
Yeah.
So we both moved from different places, and we had to figure out how to adapt to the climate that's here. We had to figure out how to change all of our preparedness, change our clothes to figure out how to live in this spot.
Absolutely.
So I wonder, maybe the folks who are tuning in today, if you can think to yourself and reflect for a moment, if you were tasked with living here for a full year, so over the course of 365 days, including winter and summer, if you were tasked with living here, I wonder what all those folks might pack in their suitcase to be prepared for all seasons. Any guess? What do you think they might pack?
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, it seems like some snow clothes would be important, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Good pair of boots.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, you know, I don't wear snow clothes year round. You might need some other things.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I know. I remember the days when we can wear shorts and tank tops.
It's hard to imagine, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can imagine all of those clothes that'll keep you happy and comfortable over the course of a full year. We might call this your wardrobe, right? So here's an image of a wardrobe. Those are the clothes that you wear all year long, or over the course of all 4 seasons, to keep you happy. But on the other hand, if you were tasked with sitting right here at Snowdesk between me and Kristen, if you were seated right here with us, I wonder the folks tuning in what they might choose to wear today based on the weather they see us experiencing right now.
Yeah. Hats, gloves.
Right. Warm
that good
jackets, lots of layers. Yeah. So we might call this your outfit in contrast. So here's an image of an outfit. You can see all the different layers you'd want today specifically in order to be happy. So think to yourself, between a wardrobe and an outfit, which one of these is long-term? Which one of these is short-term? And once you've identified that, I think this is actually a perfect segue into thinking about the important difference between someone's climate and someone's weather. Climate is something that happens long-term, right? So we might take a look at somebody's wardrobe to understand someone's climate. So you can see our climate here has some pretty intense winters, but also some nice summers. Yeah. In contrast, your outfit, that's indicative of the weather of the day, right? So this weather, pretty wet, pretty snowy. That's the outfit you'd want. You'd want an outfit to be prepared for today's weather. So between climate and weather, again, think about which of those is long-term and which of those is short-term.
Yeah, and thinking about wardrobe and an outfit is kind of a fun and interesting way to contrast climate and weather.
Right.
But if we were scientists, we probably wouldn't study wardrobe, right?
No.
We would study things like temperature and precipitation to understand a place's long-term climate. How much snow and rain do they get or not get? what's their temperature fluctuations like throughout the years. And we'd also look at that at a point in time to maybe try to help us predict the weather or something like that. So temperature, precipitation, those are the types of things that climatologists, meteorologists look at to kind of think about the science of climate and weather. So we're going to kind of quiz you here. We're going to put up some images that represent climate or weather, and we'll give you a second to think about which is this image representing, climate or weather, and then we'll kind of talk through what we're looking at here to contrast the two. All right, so this one, what do you think, Katie? I think we're just looking at like a weather map, what a meteorologist would use to predict the weather, right?
Yeah, different pressure systems coming through on a particular day and time.
Okay, so weather, right. Oh, this one's a little different. Looks like we're looking at some regional places within the continental United States and looking at their long-term average climate.
Yeah,
right?
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's climate. This one's clearly just a weather forecast for the afternoon, right? Weather. Okay, for this one, we're just looking at a thermometer and just looking at what is the temperature like right now.
Yep, so point in time.
Weather. What do you think about this one, Katie?
Yeah, so this one's pretty intense. This is Hurricane Katrina, and probably a lot of people remember this. But of course, this was a one-time event, right? Yeah.
That's just weather. This one, on the other hand, we're looking at a number of years of hurricanes. So Hurricane Katrina, as well as some others that date back even into the 70s.
Right.
So climatologists might look at storms over many decades to start looking at if a climate is changing, storms are becoming more or less frequent, that type of thing. So this series is indicative more of climate. And then finally, a rising sea level, which is something that happens on a very slow pace over a very long amount of time. So we're definitely looking at this being an example of climate or climate change.
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Hopefully they had a good time with that quiz at home, doing a little self-check-in.
Yeah, that's right.
That was great. And this is important because today, all over the earth, we are seeing new and extreme weather events. We're seeing floods and hurricanes, droughts, wildfires, extreme heat, and even crazy snowstorms. And as these weather events continue to happen over long periods of time, climate change becomes more obvious. And climate change is having real impacts on people's lives around the earth today.
That's right. That's without a doubt. But I do want to address something. I feel like somebody maybe out there is thinking, hang on. I have seen the movie Ice Age.
Oh, yeah.
I know our climate has changed before, right? The Earth has not always looked exactly like it does today. And you're right. Geologic evidence shows us that our climate has changed from warm to cold to warm over many thousands and millions of years. Got some planes going over. That's a little loud. So yes, and we know that fluctuation is happening. And currently we know that we're kind of in a warming phase. However, a lot of scientists actually think that maybe we should be in a cooling phase. That's what evidence is showing us. So during these cooling phases, or what eventually can become an ice age, the planet looked really different during that ice age, right? Here in northwestern Wyoming, for example, Katie, where we're sitting right now, during the last ice age, we would have been covered by a mile-deep sheet of ice.
Oh my gosh.
And that sheet of ice would have extended all the way to the Arctic Circle from here and even a little bit south of here. So clearly Grand Teton National Park looked pretty different. And actually a lot of North America looked very different at that point. And because the climate was different, the landscape was different, we had some pretty different creatures that we knew were living not too far from here.
In Ice Age.
Like some of the creatures in Ice Age, exactly. So they were ready for the Ice Age. Some of these animals included things like giant sloths, woolly mammoths, short-faced bear. Katie, check that out. It's as tall as a person. We have bears here, but they're not that big.
Thank goodness.
And saber-toothed tigers.
Wow.
So if the fossil record is showing us that those animals were living nearby to here, we know that clearly things cycle as a natural part of climate change.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's a valid point. This used to be totally covered in ice and there were different creatures here. That's right.
Yeah.
But today we are seeing new and unprecedented or never before seen changes in our global climate. The top 10 hottest years in recorded human history have been in the last 18 years. In fact, most of them probably in some of our students' lifetimes. Guess what the hottest year on record was?
Oh gosh, last year, 2016?
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
And before that?
2015?
Yep. And before that?
Ooh, 2014.
You got it. You're seeing the pattern here. Yeah, so this pattern of increasing severity in extreme weather events like these hot years is showing a really clear trend in long-term climate data. And the rate of this long-term warming trend is happening faster and faster and faster than any previously experienced on planet Earth before, ever. So because of this extreme warming trend, some creatures out there are struggling to adapt or survive. And specifically right here in Grand Teton National Park, there are a few critters who need to adapt. They need to make a change in order to survive as things change around them. So in today's broadcast of Snowdesk, we are going to explore the journeys of 3 different park inhabitants, or as we like to call them, our winter warriors. As we introduce each of the following winter warriors, we want you to think about 3 things. Number 1, their unique challenges. Number 2, their potential adaptations. And number 3, their deal breakers. And deal breakers are also known as factors that could be deadly or fatal to the species, and in fact, maybe even cause them to go extinct in an area. So I think we have a few correspondents standing by, and it looks like Ranger Elizabeth is ready. Ranger Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Oh, greetings! My name's Elizabeth, and I'm a ranger here in Grand Teton National Park. And I'm coming to you from high up in the mountains to introduce to you my favorite animal, the American pica. So this little guy is about the size of a hamster, and he is a member of the rabbit family. So the pica is really a solitary animal, but it actually likes to live close by other picas in what's known as a colony. And this helps them to protect against predators that might be hunting them down. And they can do this by warning one another with the little sound that goes, ee, ee. So if you're ever hiking here in the mountains, be sure to stop and listen. And if you hear that sound, ee, you want to stop and look around, because this pica is hard to see. It likes to live in rocky talus slopes. So if you sit quietly, you might just be able to see one. So the pica does not hibernate. That means it's active all year round. And so it has to find food, and how it lives through the winter is by preparing all summer long. So when you're out camping with your family or maybe swimming at the beach, the pica is gathering grasses and flowers that he puts in a big haystack, a big pile that looks like a haystack, and he feeds on these all winter long. You can see we have a lot of snow, so there's no way he's going to get down to the flowers and grasses this time of year. So these haystacks are pretty big, 4 feet tall. That's how tall they make their pile of grasses. When springtime comes, it actually is when it becomes more challenging for the pica, because believe it or not, this little animal is a true winter warrior. So even though it's hard to find food, getting through winter is easy compared to what it has to face in summer. Because in summer, there's warm, hot temperatures, and the pica doesn't like it to be more than about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So if it's down here, lower in the mountains, and the sun starts to get too warm, it goes higher and higher to elevations where it's a little bit cooler. So what's challenging for the pica is finding places that are cool enough so it doesn't overheat. And that's challenging because with climate change, temperatures are getting warmer and warmer every summer. And so what happens to this animal if temperatures never get cooler than 75 degrees in the summer, even at the high elevations where it likes to live? What if it runs out of mountaintop and can't go anywhere else? Will the pica adapt and learn to live in warmer temperatures? Or do you think the pica populations will continue to decline? These are pretty serious questions that we don't have answers to. But hopefully, with all of you and all of us rangers working on these problems, we can find ways to protect animals like the pica. Because I don't know about you, but this is my favorite animal in the park. So I would really like to see it stay here in Grand Teton. And I gotta go because I'm getting cold up on this mountain. I have to hike all the way back down. So I'm going to send you back to the Snow Desk Rangers. But thanks for listening and letting me teach you about the American pica.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Ranger Elizabeth, as always, for that update on the American pica. What an adorable winter warrior, right?
Yeah. So cute.
So
and
cute.
Such a good resistor.
Yeah. So hopefully you have a moment then to think about the challenges, adaptations, and deal breakers that you heard about the American pica. And I imagine that hopefully they can have some conversations out there, everyone who's tuning in, about the deal breakers specifically. So maybe we can review right now. What did we hear about the deal breaker for the American pica?
It seems like for them, it's more of an issue in the summer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that if the temperatures get too warm, they're going to keep trying to go to higher elevations to escape that. The mountains don't last forever. Eventually, they're going to kind of top out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so hopefully that's what you also came up with for the deal breaker for the American pica. They're decreasing habitat, and eventually those warm temperatures will cause them to just top out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, that was one winter warrior. I think we have a second correspondent standing by. He's out looking for Wolverines, actually. Ranger Mike, are you there? Can you hear us?
Oh, howdy. There you are. Hey, my name is Mike Nicholas. I'm a park ranger in Grand Teton National Park, and I'm reporting from high up in the Teton Range and Moose Basin at the north end of the range. What we're looking for is Wolverine. It's my favorite animal in Grand Teton National Park. And Wolverine is the largest member of the weasel family. The Wolverine can live to be 8 to 12 years old. It's about 3 or 4 feet in length. They're a real stocky animal, very powerful, very strong, and very vicious. I've seen video of a wolverine attacking a grizzly bear and black bear, chasing it off. I've seen a wolverine also chase away a pack of wolves to get on food. And of course, wolverines are predators. They eat meat. They will hunt squirrels, snowshoe hares, but they'll also feed on animals that have died, that didn't make it through the winter. Maybe they were killed by another animal, or there wasn't enough food for them, and they'll eat on carrion. That's carrion. That's a dead animal, C-A-R-R-I-O-N, and they'll feed on carrion. Winter is a very important time for them. Wolverine travel a long ways in their home range. Wolverine travel as much as 250 square miles in their home range, looking for food and shelter and a mate. And there's one account a few years ago of a wolverine here in Grand Teton that traveled 500 miles south into Colorado. That was the first time a wolverine had been spotted in Colorado since 1919. And so winter is a very important time for wolverine because that's when they have their young. And their kits are born in February or early March. And where they're born is in snow dens. They don't dig a den in the dirt like a bear would to hibernate. Wolverines don't hibernate, of course. They'll dig a den or a snow cave in a lot of snow. And they need 5, 10, even 15 feet of snow for them to dig down. And of course, you know that the snow is a good insulating barrier, so the animal is nice and warm in there when the mothers give birth to the kits in the spring. And they might have 2 or 3 kits. Some of the challenges that wolverines are going to have, though, as the climate changes and warms, there may not be enough snowpack for the wolverines to dig that den or that snow cave. And if there's not enough of a snowpack, they're not going to be able to have their dens, and they won't be able to have their young. So wolverines may be looking at adapting by moving north and leaving Grand Teton National Park. So the wolverine needs your help in protecting its habitat. They need hundreds of miles of wilderness land, and a lot of that is taken up by development, from human development. So they need lots of wilderness for them to roam around looking for food and shelter and their mate. So we need your help. Why don't you get your notes out, take some notes, and look at some of the challenges that the wolverines are facing, some of the problems they're facing, some of the adaptations, and some of the deal breakers that wolverines, if there's not enough snow, or if the climate's changing, or if there's too much development, what are some of the deal breakers that wolverines are facing? Well, my name is Mike Nicholas. I'm looking for Wolverine. I hope you can help us out too. Back to you at the snow desk, Rangers.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike, for that field report on the Wolverine, which I find to be such an incredible animal. So, Katie, as you were listening to that, what sort of deal breaker came up for you for the Wolverine?
Yeah. So I think what I heard about the Wolverine is that they need a pretty dense snowpack. We heard that 5, 10, even 15 feet of snow in the snowpack.
Yeah.
And they need that like into April and even May.
Yeah.
So if we start to see decreasing snowpacks around the United States, they might not have a place to have their young.
Yeah, the snow melts earlier than it used to, something like that. And we want to have baby Wolverines around.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so thanks for thinking through that about the Wolverine. We have one last field correspondent standing by. I think we have Ranger Andrew here to talk about a very different species in Grand Teton National Park. Andrew, are you there?
Hello there. Reporting from the field, this is Andrew Langford, Ranger in Grand Teton National Park. I'm speaking with you today about one of the more unique and memorable trees in Grand Teton National Park, the whitebark pine. This species is beautiful and an icon of the high subalpine, found only at an elevation of 8,000 feet or higher. And here in Grand Teton National Park, we have high mountains. The whitebark pine is important because it produces in its cones a pine nut, which is very oil rich, a food source for creatures like squirrels, birds, and of course, grizzly bears. Unfortunately, however, many of the whitebark pines are suffering. Whole forests are dying. And as the whitebark pine tree suffers, it will no longer produce the whitebark pine nut for critters like the grizzly bear. So what's killing the whitebark pine forests? It's a beetle that is native to Grand Teton National Park. This beetle bores holes, like you can see here, in the tree, and it crawls around inside, making this network of tunnels known as galleries. The galleries spread throughout the phloem layer of the tree. Phloem, P-H-L-O-E-M, which once damaged prevents the tree from cycling sugar and feeding itself. The predicament is this: the whitebark pines and the mountain pine beetles have always been here. They're both native to Grand Teton National Park. But now, because of our changing climate and slightly warmer temperatures during the winter, we're seeing beetles reproduce more often with fewer of them dying from the cold. When we have temperatures that are below 20 degrees Fahrenheit for a couple of weeks, lots of beetles die. But we have not been having winters that have been this cold. So there's been a population explosion. So the questions become, should we try to protect the whitebark pine from the beetle so that there will continue to be pine nuts for squirrels, birds, and grizzly bears? Do we allow the beetle to continue expanding its population and range, all the while devastating the whitebark pine forest to the potential point of extinction? Are there any defenses that the whitebark pine tree could employ for itself? What's the appropriate thing for people to do in this situation? Unfortunately, we don't have the answers. Perhaps the whitebark pine trees will adapt to changing conditions and new predators. Perhaps they will struggle to defend themselves and potentially even become extinct. Attempts have been made to list the whitebark pine tree as an endangered species. And so far, it's gained the designation of Canada species, which does not protect it fully. So the whitebark pine needs friends like you to help protect its habitat and advocate for it. They're one of my favorite species here in Grand Teton National Park, and I hope that they become one of yours too. Thank you. As you reflect on the whitebark pine, please take a moment to write a few notes on your worksheet. Specifically, take note of the whitebark pine tree's unique challenges, adaptations, and deal breakers. Please write these down as you reconnect with your snow desk rangers. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you, Ranger Andrew, for that update on the whitebark pine. A little different from the other winter warriors we were hearing about during the broadcast.
Yeah.
And what a truly challenging predicament.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully the folks tuning in had a chance to think about the unique challenges, the potential adaptations, and those deal breakers that they heard for the whitebark pine. So maybe we can review. What did you hear for the deal breakers?
I mean, it seems like the deal breaker for the whitebark pine is, it's interesting that the beetle is actually a native species,
Right.
but its numbers are increasing as our winters warm up just ever so slightly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So more beetles, greater damage to the whitebark pine. But is there any way that the whitebark pine tree can defend itself?
Right. Not really. It's not like it can pick up its roots and
Yeah.
move away.
Go somewhere else. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really challenging. So yeah, a lack of defense, and then this population explosion from a native beetle. That's pretty challenging.
Interesting.
Mhm.
All right. Good stuff. Well, so we just learned about 3 really interesting species in Grand Teton National Park who are currently feeling the effects of climate change. And I just want to use this opportunity to remind those of you tuning in, if you have questions about some of those species that we didn't answer, or you have other questions about Grand Teton that you want us to try to answer some of those at the end of the broadcast, there's a live chat function on here that you can use, or you can use that GRTE_education@nps.gov to send us questions as well. And we'll try to answer a few at the end.
Looking forward to that.
So clearly, as we heard these stories, each of those correspondents actually posed some interesting questions about, do we take action? Do we intervene? Do we do something? Do we kind of stand back and see what happens? If we do choose to intervene in some way, what's too much? Or what's the right type of action to take? And we admit that those are really tough questions, and I don't think we really have the answers to those.
Yeah. Yeah, they are really tough questions. So again, we here at Snowdesk, we took a little time today to share some of our challenges related to climate change. We also talked about some of the extreme weather events that are happening around the world. Remember those droughts, floods, extreme wildfires, unexpected storms. And what we want to do now is encourage everyone who's tuning in today to take a moment and reflect on some of the extreme weather events that you've seen in your hometown. And again, be thinking about the weather events that are in the short term, but be thinking about if you've seen greater changes in trends or patterns over long periods of time. So maybe parents or grandparents, family, friends talk about how things used to be and how they feel a little different now. We encourage you to think about those types of examples and even some of the impacts of those changing weather events. So I know my family in California was encouraged to ration their water use during the California drought. Yeah, what else has been going on around the United States?
Well, I just think of, the Midwest or other places where they're growing a lot of food, how agriculture can be impacted by a changing climate potentially, and then how those might even impact everyone through food prices or food availability, that type of thing.
Yep. I know the drought in not only California, but elsewhere, even I think we were talking to some schools in the like the East Coast area near Great Smoky Mountain. And they had some pretty extreme wildfires in recent history.
That were really unusual for that area.
So hopefully you took a moment to think about some of the examples of the challenges that you're facing in your local home area. And I know sometimes that can feel overwhelming. It can feel like it's a big challenge, but the good news is you and your family, your schools, you can all be a part of the solution, actually. Even taking time to tune into Snowdesk today and learning about some of the effects of climate change in other parts of the world, that's a great first step to becoming part of the solution. So we challenge you to dig into the effects of climate change in your local home area and pick something that you can do. Pick something that you can do to be part of the solution and make the world a better place. In fact, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead. She once said that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has.
It's true. And, you know, it makes me think that maybe out there, in fact, I'm quite sure of it, there are some thoughtful, committed citizens. Maybe they could change the world.
But they could.
I wonder what type of actions or choices or decisions that they'll take to think about these things that clearly need our attention. We've talked about a lot of changes that are happening both here in Grand Teton and, you know, across the nation that we know might need our attention. So here we talked about the pica, the Wolverine, the white bark pine, and some changes that we are seeing right now. And we as park rangers definitely work hard to protect places like Grand Teton and some of the other 414 other national parks sites across the nation. But that's a lot of national parks, and there's a lot going on in each of those national parks. So we actually think that it's up to the owners of national parks, the people who own the national parks, to help us to take care of those places. And if you're looking around and wondering, well, who are the owners of national parks? Great news, it's you. All of you are owners of national parks like Grand Teton or places that might be closer to you. And that means it's all of our responsibility to help take care of it. You know, park rangers are going to be working hard to do it, but we need your help for that. So think about that. Think about that we are owners of national parks. Think about the fact that future generations own national parks too. So no matter how old you are, maybe you have kids, maybe someday you will have kids or grandkids or great-grandkids, and national parks belong to them too. So it's our responsibility to take care of these places, even for those future generations. So we challenge you and your friends, your teacher, to talk more about how to protect national parks near you. And I think we're going to bring up a map to just give us an idea of national parks across this country. They are kind of all over the place. So look at this map. Look around online, look in your local community. What national park is near you? How can you learn more about it? How can you help protect it? And you know, hopefully we can all become caretakers of these special places. You can take a field trip, you can explore, you can take time to learn about it just like you are right now. You can become a junior ranger, just get out there and find your park. Because in the words of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better, it's not. So we hope you care a whole awful lot about Grand Teton National Park and other national parks near you. And we thank you for tuning in to this broadcast of Snowdesk, Why Winter Matters. We're going to take a moment maybe to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look at Snowdesk here in just a moment. But here's places where you can go for more information about Grand Teton if you're looking to learn more. And here in a moment, I think we're going to take a couple questions, but here's our wonderful behind the scenes Snowdesk crew doing all the cool technology that you've seen happening. So thanks to them. So have we had any questions come in on any of our different? Stand by for questions.
And just a reminder, if you're hoping to send in questions for today's program, here are all the different locations you could send them. I think we are currently standing by at our email address, which is grte_education@nps.gov. So that's the first two letters of Grand and Teton. So grte_education@nps.gov. And we'd love to take questions there.
All right. Okay, sounds like we have a question on what's the best part of being a ranger. We both can probably contribute to this. It is absolutely an amazing job to be a park ranger. I feel very fortunate to have this job. I can think of two things. First of all, I get to live, work, and play in this amazing place, which means, you know, you get to go see amazing things, just witness, even sometimes just on my way to work, I witness things that just blow my mind, you know, beautiful scenery or really neat wildlife experiences. And so just getting to be part of that on an almost daily basis is pretty amazing. And then getting the opportunity to share my love of this place with people all over the world who come here, or even through means such as this.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would add to that, Katie?
I just, yeah, to add on, I think it's just watching people fall in love with these special places. I love seeing families return here, families who tell me that they came here on their first honeymoon and now they're back with their grandkids. And I just love seeing people fall in love with these special places and take care of them over the course of their lifetimes.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Ooh, sounds like Alan from Alaska
Yeah.
wants to know what our favorite animal in the park is.
Favorite animal in the park? We both probably have something to come up with here.
Yeah.
I think my favorite animal, it's hard to choose, but I think I would go with the gray wolf. Just because it's an animal that used to live in a lot more places, now only lives in a very few places, including Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park is kind of one of the last places that you'll see those things in the wild. And even here, we don't get to see them very often, so they just feel very wild and mysterious and exciting to me. And I have had the opportunity to witness them a few times, and it's just an amazing thing. And sometimes it's really interesting to watch the social interactions within a pack of wolves and things like that. So I think that's my favorite. What about you?
Yeah, I go back and forth. Usually in the winter, the way I answer this question is the weasels. We have short-tailed and long-tailed weasels. And I love them because they camouflage to blend in with the surrounding season. So our weasels are white right now, also called ermine this time of year, if you've heard that. But I love seeing them. We have a few in our neighborhood, and they just pop right up out of the snow and then go back down in, and they really crack me up. So anyways, I love the weasel.
Cute and ferocious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So Oliver, did you hear where Oliver is?
Connecticut, I think.
Oliver in Connecticut wants to hear more about marmots. Marmots aren't something that we've necessarily talked about a whole lot during this broadcast, and partially because they're a winter warrior in their own way because they're sleeping, which is a great way, if you ask me, to handle a winter in Grand Teton National Park. They are hibernators.
Yeah.
They live mostly up in the mountains, in the alpine habitat, we would call that. So you find them on the rocky slopes and the canyons and the mountains. Yeah. Do we have something else from the marmot that we wanted to show? Maybe not. Okay.
Oh, we had a good question. What elevation do bears hibernate? I have heard that it's maybe less about elevation and more about the type of terrain or habitat. They need kind of a mixed habitat, so like some forested areas with some cover, some protection that they would choose to hibernate in. So in contrast, like here in this national park, we have lots of open areas of sagebrush, like this large plains area. You probably wouldn't find bears hibernating in that type of habitat, but in the maybe more of the forest habitat. But we have the forest habitat all the way from, I mean, we're here at what, 6,400
feet about?
Yeah. And the forest habitat goes up pretty darn high into the mountains. I think anywhere
10,000 feet.
Yeah. So maybe a range of 4,000 feet that they could choose to hibernate in. It's more the terrain that they need. That's a great question.
And they don't always hibernate in a cave. A lot of people vision like the bear in a cave hibernating. And I'm sure if they could find that would be great. But
That'd be amazing.
they'll just dig under a log or just dig into a hillside. They're not quite as picky as you might think about exactly where they hibernate.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that's all the time we have questions for. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in to Snowdesk, the show from the snow in Grand Teton National Park. We hope you take time to get out, learn, and explore, find a national park near you, and find a way to become a part of that solution.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.